right, a little bit of a volume test. Check, 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 check. Let's see. All right, a little bit of a volume test. Check, 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 check. All right, good enough. Um, yeah, so a little earlier to the desk today for the stream. Um, I just want to go over kind of a bit of the game plan for today. So yesterday was chop, chop, chop. Um, Looking at the weekly candle formation, I don't know how much lower we go. I mean, obviously my draw is down to these lows, this low, eventually maybe these lows into this impulse range that was never really efficiently delivered from this high to this low. That's long term, right? For now, the overall bias is for NQ to play catch up with ES and the Dow and YM. So we have this SMT on the lows. I expect this SMT to be ran through pretty aggressively to discount the signature itself. So that's on the longer time frame horizon. From a daily perspective, I'm thinking we just kind of chop around today to make the week sort of close sort of the way the candle looks right now. I don't know how much more expansion it has left in it, like I was talking about yesterday in the recap of yesterday's trades. So we're holding this 4-hour fair value gap. It's not what's marked out over here. This is the 1-hour fair value gap and this 4-hour little order block. The hourly fair value gap was ran through. We'll see how much mind we pay to that. For now, I'm kind of neutral. I have on the 15-minute chart these lows set out in this gap. I mean, you have 3 super equal ones right here. We could mark them out too, but I just kind of had these lows as well. So if we really do start to accelerate after taking these, probably aim for these lows after. So for now, this is my downside target, my immediate downside target, these smooth, rounded out lows that were unmitigated. So 19,791. We'll be using this gap as clarity. ES, also just kind of peeping into the hourly fair value gap. We do have some SMT on the lows here, and ES is holding this hourly gap a little bit better than NQ. And then we had the SMT take place within that gap, so that's meaningful. This scenario where these lows are being held and these lows are being held makes sense for how the weekly candle is going to form for me. So I'm not opposed to taking some long scalps based off of this information. I just need a little bit more to kind of get in sync with that. Because if you look at the daily profile, we have a London reversal with SMT. So ES takes out these highs and Q does not. Right at London session, big reversal. So we may have London reversal, New York continuation, which we kind of did. 7 a.m. session starts to go down, and now we're retracing pretty heavily into that gap. So that's why I'm not super keen on trading downside, but I do have targets. We do have some more SMT put in here. You can see ES is rejecting the weekly opening price as well as the top of the new week opening gap, bottom of a couple days ago's new day opening gap. NASDAQ also getting shoved at the bottom of the new week opening gap. You see it was just a little jab above the midnight opening price, Globex opening price, and the reversal takes place in London. So Fridays are typically non-event days. I think we had news today. I think we had PCE. Let's see what we got. And I'm pretty sure it was in line with expectations. So bit of a nothing burger. Clearly you could see at 9:30 there wasn't too much going on. I mean, excuse me, 8:30. I don't know if I said 9:30 or 8:30. But 8:30 opens, comes down, well, manipulates. And that's where we have the SMT. So maybe it was meaningful. 10 o'clock, we have Michigan 1-year inflation expectations and Michigan consumer sentiment. These are all two star news drivers. It may just chop us around today. Not really looking at anything too crazy. So we will see. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of get on a little bit earlier before the market opened to kind of show you what my plan is. Let's go to Topstep. There's just a lot of jumbled mess. So we have the hourly fair value gap here, bearish, holding, and like I mentioned, we have some other confluence over here. I guess I can mark out 830 as well, but I don't want it to get too sloppy, and I think I'm more so looking at what 930 is going to do. Yeah, there's just not a lot. So on the upside, I don't really, I don't know, I don't really have much. Just to like draw towards the weekly open is kind of like my thought for how a magnet might work, you know, in terms of upside draw. I don't really have like any like super high confident targets. Maybe come back up into midnight to get up into this bounce price range. That could be it. That could be a nice long scalp. Just want to be careful. So yeah, maybe targeting midnight is good for a long scalp in the morning. Obviously, if we get the opportunity, and then below is these lows, so we'll just mark them out. And then these 15-minute lows, which puts us into that 15-minute gap. So that's the game plan for today. We're kind of neutral. No real bangers on the watch. Just gonna be pretty defensive, I think, this morning. That's gonna be the goal, I think. So now we wait. Maybe I'll tweet out the YouTube link or something. So pre-market, looks like S&T is kind of pushing us down. Little 1 minute equals are probably going to get swept here. It's cold. It's always so cold in the morning. So these chills. You know, actually, I'm gonna get another. I'm gonna put on. Okay, we're back. Just in time for the open in about 8 seconds. I'm gonna throw on my breather right because I'm sniffling all the time. Okay, there goes the open. Remember that this black line is the low of the 4-hour fair value gap. That was holding price. There it goes, sweeping those equal 2 minutes or 2 1 minute lows. Okay. Wickless 1 minute candle here. So I mean, if we take these lows and invalidate the SMT, I'm like, and it has to be this low. It has to be the same low that ES took. I'm not going to be as firm, like it means less if we, I wish I looked at a 5-minute chart. Actually, it's okay. If we do take this low, more apt to target those 15-minute lows that I mentioned earlier, pre-market open. If we don't, neutral to upside bias to draw towards midnight in the weekly open. And that's where I believe the day kind of ends, or the week, you know, for the weekly candle. Wow, hourly chart top wick is nasty. Same sort of deal as yesterday. But look, yesterday we put in that bottom wick. Look how well we did. Now we put in the top wick. It might just do the same thing. A little bit of a yucky day. Okay, so took that low. I am definitely thinking lower into those 15-minute lows that we were talking about. Now it's just a matter of, how do I get involved without shorting a bottom here? That's going to be the harder one. I think today's just going to be about realizing that there's not a huge opportunity for us. If I wanted to be short, I would probably have to have been short off the open, you know, anticipating this SMT to hold. But SMT on the lows, we kind of just have to wait and see. More SMT now. We'll see what happens. I think today, like I said, is just going to be about extreme patience. If ES starts to accelerate lower as well, definitely, like I said, this makes the case more for this blue line to be our target for a short trade. If we do start to take off, I might just accept that, 9:30 open, put in a new SMT, on the lower time frames between this low and that low and whatever. But it's nothing I'm really excited to trade to the upside, so. 10 o'clock, we do have that news coming. I set a little alarm to remind myself. $9:58, it'll say news in 2 minutes. Yeah. Just trying to stay out of trouble. Was looking at a possible short on 1-minute SMT between these highs. If ES wanted to kind of give it up after taking that high, and Q staying within the OTE of this little 1-minute swing range. And I guess realistically it would have been from here to here. So we've both just taken that high. Let's look at a little bit higher time frames. 3-minute, a little less gross to look at, a little bit more clear. Comes into this premium fair value gap. Just now rejecting. So right now it's not, there's nothing screaming at me obvious. You know, I have an obvious draw to the downside on the NASDAQ for sure. But I don't, you know, I'm not super convinced that it's not going to just rocket up to, you know, midnight or the weekly opening price. So, and the strength on ES is also holding me back. So there's just nothing super clear for me to move yet, um, on both sides. For the long, the only thing that's obvious is that there's SMT on this 5 minute structure after taking the low, and we are like kind of tearing through bearish arrays, but now look how we're holding that hourly fair value gap that we kind of inverted. But then also it's kind of messy, you know, close below, close back above, close back below, just chop. Sorry if I'm shaking the computer because I'm like, you know, bouncing my foot or whatever on the edge of this table. So yes, new week opening gap rejecting the midpoint, CE. Very low resistance looking leg here. There's that 4 hour fair value gap low. You know, I don't mind that as a long and like keep a stop. Like I don't want it to puke this 4 hour low. Just to get on sides with an upside move. I mean, or on sides with an upside move. We do have the SMT on the 1 minute and the 3 minute. Why I liked the 3 minute here was because we just jabbed into this inversion. I might get caught in crap though. That's why we're only in 1 micro. And we were rejecting that hourly fair value gap. Now we have SMT on these lows, which is nice. So I'm just gonna keep my stop where it's at. But I definitely want to see it start to, you know, give me some juice to the upside here. That's ugly for yes. I'm wrong. Sucks. Heyo. Hi-ho silver. Can I get a yes? That SMT held. Gotta love it. Proper stop placement. What a deep retracement off that. Very deep. So I'd like to hold this one into midnight. I don't really want to add to it. And I'm actually more so prone to take it off, you know, my honest opinion. The only reason I'm holding is because we had the SMT. Ooh, listen to your heart. um, okay. Yeah, it's going to be one of those days, I think. I just got to trust this low. If I get taken out, I get taken out. So just rejecting the top end of the hourly fair value gap there. My gut was telling me to just take it off up at the high. I would realistically, we're just looking at the inverted 3-minute, right, and the SMT on those lows. Oh, that sucks, man. Well, hey, at least we thought it was gonna crush us over there first anyway. Gross. Sweep, sweep. Took the short off the sweep on this high into the 3-minute, maybe reclaiming it. It could just be ugly though. I could just be caught in a chop zone within the 5. Should really just chalk it. I think my stop should be up here, but solid rejection. More SMT. Yeah, I just maybe back to the weekly open. I like how it's rejecting the midpoints of the 3-minute. That's really the only thing that's keeping me alive here. Added another one into that as I saw ES weakness into the bottom of its new week opening gap. I got a rough feeling about it though. Yeah. All right. We're gonna stay super still for a little bit now. That sucks. Just can't get any momentum. I think it's just gonna chop. Okay. I want to give the midpoint of the hourly gap because that's what started this down move. Um, the top of the hourly fair value gap. I want to give it a shot. And we're just going to go in with 1. weakness on ES as well with those highs up there. And let's just see what happens. Where's this, that 3 minute? Let's just get rid of that because we don't need that anymore. Yes, it's getting weaker. I just it's probably gonna take my stop here. Super lame. I want to add more. I'm also like not opposed to after a sweep if it starts to accelerate down, just adding back in. I just feel like being down where I'm at, I need to start to cover my downside risk a little bit with these stops. I like how it's slowly moving into here. I do want to add one more. Yeah, was afraid of that. Pop through. Let's see if it wants to puke now after taking my stop. Very well may. There it is, there's that open tap. Came back down to it, should rocket off of that. That was the last trade on day one. Let's just roll out here. SMT on the small time frames. We're just gonna try to scalp out of this. Order block. Watching SMT to take the lows when I should take a little bit off of this trade. Took 2 there just to eat out some of the red. Just saw the weakness from this high to this high. NASDAQ playing off of that hourly gap midpoint. Just, had to jump back in. Okay, yes, took the low now. See if it just ranges. Could. I just want it to melt through. I mean, I'm holding the trade because I'd like it to get to the target. But part of me obviously wants to take the trade off to minimize some of the drawdown. I probably really realistically should have just peeled one contract up here instead of two, but was really just guarding against whipsaw action. You know, I wanted to get something out of that trade. So, you know, I will take that one off just because wickless candle touch, ES bouncing off the midpoint of that hourly gap that we used as something to, you know, shoot us down. ES a little bit stronger. We may just be taking lows and whipsawing today. So I'm just going to take that off the table. Could always try to re-enter the trade, but I don't know. Something just feels icky about today. Something feels a little gross. So happy to just minimize a little bit of the red there. On the higher time frames, it's like obvious that like we should be going down. So I think I'm just going to stick to the downside. I mean, the only thing, like I said, the only thing that's says possible upside is the fact that I don't think that the weekly candle should really melt much more. Like, is probably not going to close on the lows. So that's pretty much it. So 5 minute was clear actually. If you look at the 5 on how it's reacting with its alignment time frame, which is the hourly time frame, look how it's holding the midpoint of that hourly gap. So a little bit more clear for downside. Just kind of missed that. I feel like NQ could start playing catch up, just kind of melt down here. I don't really want to take this short though and put my stop above this candle's high. I just feel like it might get stopped out. Here's those same lows for ES. We'll just mark out these equal ones. And you know what, I guess sure. We'll do this one too. For the sake of it. Feels like today's a bit of a battle. Really good rejection out there. I just want to be careful. I feel like it could poke into this rejection block. ES can poke into the bottom of the hourly and then just shoot up again. Just feels very, very sketchy. Very, very sketchy of a day to like, you know, take an entry where it's like, okay, you know, we put in that high and that high's respected, so I could take a close proximity short around here and then put my stop above this high. Doesn't feel like one of those days where we're going to get smooth action. So for that reason, I'm just not, I'm not digging that type of confident entry. Yeah. Okay, news in 2 minutes. Medium impact. You theoretically could hold through this news, but considering I have not the greatest grip on where it should be going, I'm not going to. Just marking out the midpoint of this wick. More SMT. I feel like ES could be a value long at that low, but I'm not taking it. Not that first of all, I usually don't trade ES, and then second of all, I also like I do believe that these lows are definitely in play. There it is, son of a gun. Let's see if it gives me the entry. I'm pretty sure that this is the draw now. I just don't want to get caught in like a spike up. So let's just, okay, good rejection off ES there. I don't want to short NQ immediately off of that hourly gap rejection. Also, since the bodies are holding, but I am pretty confident that, well, so here's the problem though, now that we're kind of talking about it, is that it would also make sense for us to put in this low. This is more engineered liquidity for those lows on the 15, from these lows here. It's more support. It's more smooth support that was just built. And then if you think back to the weekly candle, we could just draw back up into the open from here. So narrative is not very clear right now. That's a pretty solid opportunity there. That rejection, if it starts to really melt, let's look at the midpoint of the Hoos wick. Look at the 1 minute bodies holding that hourly gap. I'm shorting that high based off of ES rejecting the hourly open, both in fair value gaps. My risk here is that we hold this midpoint of this wick. And then that's not good news for me, but I liked the kind of swift rejection off of that gap high on ES, and then both indexes kind of finding some selling pressure in the way that candle printed. So I need it though to really get past this midpoint. All the support here at the midpoint of this wick is not great for the trade. I just didn't want it to accelerate without me. Then I have a poor entry below this midpoint wick. And then the trade is pretty much gone. So I had to execute relatively quick there. Basically that move. I didn't want to chase that move. I really want to add one. I just don't know where to right now. Obviously up in this gap I'd add. But it would be better if it actually didn't even touch it. Well, get what you wish for. Added one there. Okay. Frustrating day. Tricky day. No blood. I mean $7. And I'm gonna cut it. I'm gonna cut it here today. I don't have a good grip on this market right now. I'm just kind of disappointed in I'm disappointed in my execution up in this area. It's really, actually, I'm disappointed in this trade. I feel like in general I handled the day good. Um, the problem was that it was very 50-50. A part of me really wanted to understand how the weekly candle was going to close and be correct about that. I honestly, to be completely, fair with myself, I didn't see this happen. I didn't see this as a possibility, this weekly candle to print the way it is right now. I really did not. I didn't even look at Michigan expectations. Obviously, it was not great if this is how we're reacting, or maybe it was. Who the hell knows? So inflation expectations went up slightly for the 1 year. Consumer sentiment down. Second month now in a row. 5-year inflation expectations up also. I don't know. Just hard to get a grip on the volatility of how far we're kind of moving for a Friday. I didn't think we'd be puking these lows like this right now. It's also why I took off the trade, at here. So I moved my stop to, think about holding a runner, but then the more realistic me was like, what do you like? Don't be an idiot, you were down a good day up here. You know, you're scratched now. Live to fight another day. It was just a hard, like, and so let's recap real quick. When I zoomed out, it was pretty clear. I was like, oh yeah, like it wants to go lower, you know, S&T on these highs from the open. Just moving into the 5-minute fair value gap, nothing crazy. Okay. It was really just the low time frame and my thought, my expectation of how the weekly candle was going to perform or was going to act. You know, about pretty much on how it's going to form is that, like, you know, we might just go up here and this is like a weird day. Yesterday was an awful price action type of day too. So I was thinking, so traditionally, let me rewind completely. Okay, traditionally, when you have S&T from the London to the New York open around 7, okay, that should hold. So this here should hold. Like if you're thinking, I don't have an S&T line. How about default? Wow, melting. Meh, whatever. What are you gonna do? Blessed to be 788 today. It was ugly earlier. It was absolutely ugly. But anyway, when you have this S&T, the expectation is that if it's going, like if we, this is how I really should have thought about it. And I've seen this before, and it's actually, so it's happened. I only have so many references of this situation happening. And to be honest with you, sometimes it's worked the way I'm going to explain, and other times it's worked how it's working. So I think in my mind, I need to choose how I want to look at it and not how, like, because the data is too 50-50 for me in order for me to avoid ruin, like possibly happened today, like where I'm kind of in between. I just have to pick how I want to think about it. And I'm going to decide that when we invalidate here, that means we're going lower. Like so let me explain. SMT on these hourly lows, if we were going to move into midnight, or if midnight was the objective, or if the weekly open was the objective, this SMT should hold. We should never breach it. So when NQ, okay, like we shouldn't have looked back. We should have taken, like on the 15-minute time frame or whatever, we should have held the 4-hour fair value gap low. That could have been our max retracement. And on the smaller time frames, basically what the long trade was, okay, when we were looking at the 3-minute inversion from here to here, these lows, this SMT should have held us, okay? And then we should have rocketed. Hold on, let me just mark that out, bang, bang. Okay, this SMT should have been the secondary SMT, okay, to then, was this the stronger pair? No. This should have been the secondary SMT that propelled us up into these highs and this high. And that's why I held on to the trade. Even though we were rejecting the top end of the hourly gap, I chose in the moment not to pay attention to it because we close below, close above, close below. Now we're ripping back up. You know, it could have just been a chop zone. You know what I mean? So that's why I chose to held. And then I took the full stop. So that was frustrating. But like I'm saying, this should have never, first of all, this should have happened, this move should have happened before we took this line. Okay. I should know. I'm basically, instead of randomize it, like this is my, like in poker, how they randomize, you know, 50-50 shots where you're kind of in between, you just randomize. I'm going to take the same exact approach here to when we invalidate a London into New York session SMT and I have a draw below and it makes sense for me to trade lower, that completely invalidates the upside as anything. You know what I mean? I just have this sideline there. It was okay. I mean, look, this was a fine, you know, we almost got stopped out, but it ended up rocking it right back. That is what it is. It was really once we rejected this top end, okay, and with like, so we rejected the top end, crushed the S&T. You have a change in state of delivery over here between this candle's high, right? So this becomes our order block. We also have S&T from ES, and that's formed at the midpoint of the new week opening gap. We melt, come back down, and look how we're approaching here. So I took a long here when there was like a touch on the 4-hour gap. I'm pretty sure, right? I remember I was trying to, this is going to look gross with the executions. Yeah, well, we were short because then we saw this little jab into both this gap and this gap, so balanced price range. I wanted to add more as we were creeping up, but I just had that like screen time sort of experience moment where it's like it's just going to do that to pump up through the high. But then I told myself before it happened was, you know, if it does sweep that high, I'm probably just going to get right back in. I just had to protect myself against the ugly, like just straight up candle into midnight into the weekly open. You know, that even though I was holding one micro, first of all, P&L was down bad at this point too. Wow, it is just, the market is just disgusting right now. I cannot, like, this is where we exited. Um, I mean, who the hell saw that? Not me. So whatever. There's only so much you can do. Anyway, I see that, you know, we're holding here. So again, we're in between, we're conflicted because I have not committed to the downside. Just because of, you know, before the rule that I just instated with myself that I'm strictly going to follow at this point. There is no 50-50. If it invalidates that SMT in the morning, it's invalidated. That SMT no longer exists. And anything in between it is BS. Like that is a fake SMT from like the 5-minute, whatever. You know, we could look at that here. Like that way, then this move here is fake. This is manipulation. From it's holding this low, that's manipulation. It would have been SMT inception had we held this low and took this low. If we held this low and took this low and ES did the same thing, that's SMT inception, different. That's why in the beginning of the stream I'm saying, well, if we take this low, I kind of have to commit to the downside, which I didn't really even listen to myself because that was the 50-50 kind of saying where, you know, so I've seen it, you know, then 930 create a new SMT and, you know, we run to the races, whatever. That's over with. Then we get another jab, looky again, you know, top SMT here. That's also why I re-entered, rejecting the lower quarter, not even really touching. So if we, here, let me measure from this to this. Not even getting up to the lower quadrant of the new week opening gap and just rejecting top of the hourly fair value gap causes the change in state of delivery on the 1 minute. When we retrace, the midpoint of the hourly gap should reject, okay? So then when we create the SMT at the high here, and then we get the abrupt move, that's my key to start shorting. And again, we had already told ourselves that we're getting short here. So 1, 2, 3, I think at 905, 904, 904. So we waited for it to puke down. We basically, what we did was we anticipated and it's hard for me, like, look, I can only explain so much while I'm trading because I'm, you know, trying to take this, you know, seriously as an account. You know, it's hard to talk out loud and compute what I'm trying to compute all at the same time. But basically I get short because I see the SMT here. This is my new change in state of delivery on a smaller time frame after poking into this balanced price range, which is the area from this low to this high, right in there. You can see we're rejecting that nicely. Okay, midpoint. Had I drawn it out, it'd be even more obvious, but I don't like to clutter too much because that itself, having too many of the drawings on will just tell us, it can tell any story. So I try to just, you know, use a few things. So we get short, anticipating that this is the new protected high. We start to puke down. I immediately take a few off, and that's just because we're at this point, it's damage control. It's no longer about trying to hold a runner or whatever it may be. We get about 15 points, so we're trying to clear out some, we're trying to dig ourselves out of a hole of, you know, some poor trades in this. Ugh, grossness, just look at that. This was really the treachery. So just kind of like got stopped out a few times up here. And this was really the bigger loss. 68 bucks, that's like on one micro is sizable for, to then battle and get chopped up in here. But anyway, so we take a 2 off at like 15 points, just because one, we're back at the bottom of the hourly gap. Okay. Who knows? Like, like at this point, I'm like, I could just be getting chopped to death. I'm not completely sold on downside just yet. Like, this could just be a micro reversal, a micro retracement just to move into this gap and then completely, return back. Like, who knows? We're still in the middle of a range. So at this point, all I'm thinking is get me some cash so I can, breathe a little bit. That way I could, continue to fight. Because the last thing you want to do is hold too big of a, hold a winning trade that could, there's still plenty of day left, basically how I was thinking about it. And I don't want to not be able to dig some out, give myself some breathing room to then trade just better, like knowing I'm not as under the gun with, in drawdown. So I take off a couple here, we hold one, I get out because again, I'm starting to see like just this gross reality of we might just dig into these wicks and then bounce back up. Like at this point, I can't, it's hard for me to trust the market. However, I do, this is when I choose to zoom out and then it becomes a little bit more obvious. 10 o'clock news comes in and that's kind of when we get the, I'm starting to look at points of reversal here for us. So let me get out of here. Let's take that out. So the original entry, by the way, could have just held. But, and again, if we weren't in drawdown, it would be a different story. When I'm in like capital preservation mode of like trying to just get back to a reasonable balance, that's where this, sucks to suck. Shouldn't have messed up, over here. It just is what it is. So 10 o'clock comes in, we're measuring, the wick here, that 1 minute wick. You can see we reject off it beautifully. And then I'm waiting to see, sorry, I always got like hairs all over me. Okay, we're cleared, now we're flat. Long newswick, gotta wait. Rejects 10 a.m. good here. I want to give it one more chance because again, these are 15-second candles on a 1 minute. It could just be like the one, like a body moving back into there. So you have to kind of give things a little bit of a chance. We run back up. One more SMT at these highs. And if you look, it's rejecting the 10 a.m. open. And on a 1 minute, if we zoom right back out, it looks a lot better. And like I said, I called out. It was really how ES starts to print right here that I'm like convinced. I already want to short this gap, but I'm being careful because ES isn't quite moving into the midpoint of its newswick. Okay, it just tapped it once and then ran. It was holding, NQ's dancing along it. Could, we could get one of those, nasty accumulations and then a rocket candle. So wanted to stay patient. And then in real time, this is why like trade recaps are not as meaningful as you seeing me do it in live, watching the candle print, because it was how this candle, this 15-second candle printed once it ran into the lower end of this fair value gap, this hourly fair value gap, okay? And how I noticed both indexes saw selling pressure. You saw a bunch of bids get snapped. You see the candle quick, zoop, quick. So then I get, that's my signal. Then I'm thinking, okay, we have the SMT on this high. We took this high into the 10 a.m. rejecting. Okay, this is a fair, we're in the premium of this little leg. Okay, even though I guess realistically you would say that this is the leg there, but and if that's the case, you can see how we ran that right up into the equilibrium of this little move there. Okay, so then I'm short one, and then I'm explaining like my risk here is that we don't start to puke this news candle, this 15-second news candle wick, the midpoint of that. We do, finally. And why I got in here was because of not only those reasons of like, the quick zap, seeing the order flow in the candle, seeing what happened, seeing bids get snatched, you could see it. I wanted to get in right then and there because I don't want to chase my initial entry. I don't want to chase this move down, because if I'm wrong here, then I have to weather a whole lot more drawdown. You know, if I'm wrong here, it's just going to hold this and it's going to take this high and it's going to throw me for another loop like it did up in here. Okay. So finally it comes down. We have the breakaway. I say again, I want to add. I'm just not sure where I would. Obviously, I said I wanted to add in here if this candle printed and then we came right back in. That's an acceptable add. After it didn't, I said, well, it'd be better if you don't. It doesn't. So obviously, I have to add then. You get what you wish for. We take the short, another one at 20. I take one off on a limit like just above, and then the other one a point higher. I wanted to leave a runner. That's why you saw me move my limit. But then a little bit of that fear, doubt kind of crept in, and basically just the fact of like how much lower can we go? Because then back in my brain again, it's like, why are we chasing a move lower when the original, you got yourself into trouble with this original thought of how the weekly candle should act and how it's going to look, which is crazy. I mean, look at this from top to bottom is nuts. That's a heavy, this is an ugly close, by the way. This is a disgusting weekly close. For any hope of a bounce, this is a nasty, nasty, nasty close. If it closes on the low, okay? Or just the fact that it's even doing it is like disgusting. Like that, this is a terrifying, you know, weekly close. 870 point close, and we were just up at the highs on Monday. Whatever. And look how it's just melting. Gross. But yeah, so I took it off there because my expectations weren't that it was going to do this. I just wasn't anticipating this. So I realized in the moment that it was greed that was causing me to want to hold into here and want more to try to get. And the reality is like also why I closed is I realized I was like, okay, you have one micro contract. What are you going to hold it for 20 bucks? You know, another 10 points lower and then jam your stop to here. You're even anyway if that happens. So all in the moment you have to realize like, what am I doing? Like, you know, like what are my outcomes very quickly, because you don't have a lot of time to think about that decision. But you quickly, I quickly realized I'm like, I have one micro. Obviously I didn't think I was gonna, how many points is that? 30. I didn't think I was gonna make 60 bucks in, another 30 seconds. I figured it would maybe mosey or something, but the point is am I going to give up the possibility of being even on the day for retracement? Like, because then I'm not going to chase it short. We've already taken the target. If anything, I might get stuck long and then get screwed on the downside here, not expecting it. So, like, am I going to risk being even for another 20 bucks or just even again? Like, what is the difference? What is the difference? So here, that's why I closed the trade. I realized I'm like, there's no point in holding this contract. I don't have enough size on to hold anymore. So it just doesn't make any sense. Had I had 3 contracts, I took 1 off or 2 off here and I'm even for the day. Then you could leave a runner. Then you have unrealized P&L, whatever. And I could be like, it was a shit show of a day. I'm happy to just be even today. Screw a $60 profit. Let this thing run. But that wasn't the case, so had to manage my expectations. I'm okay with that. I mean, I'm not stoked. This is a crazy. I want to take you over to trading view. Look at that. I mean, it is just melt central. I really didn't think that this was going to happen for this week. I really didn't. I figured we'd close somewhere over here, and then next week we would get this move. But I did say that it's gonna have to be volatile. It's gonna have to be a sharp move down to invalidate. Like whenever we have possible SMT, and let this be like kind of another little lesson, is like it's the same way on smaller time frames. If you're trading an SMT that's very early, like here, like where there's no structure to back up that it is actually a reversal, you're just like narrative, boom, left this high alone. I'm taking the earliest, entry long. It's going to like it would be here, would be this like candle on the daily. It's going to invalidate that setup so fast. And I'm used to trading it on like, 15-second candles or minute candles. But it's all fractal, it's all the same. So if you look at it on a weekly, like in theory, if this is not the pivot, the market will do what it needs to do to quickly invalidate and play catch up to this low. So it should get pretty nasty on the downside. I just didn't think it was going to happen so quick. Like, like this week, like next week, you know what I mean? I don't have a great grasp of how the weekly candles, move. I just tried to go about it logically, in terms of like, average wick size, average candle. So yeah, today kind of sucks. I mean, look, I'm super happy to, come back even. Um, wow, man. Super happy to come back even just because it was like just got caught up in some real nasty mix like over here. This was peak 50-50 here. Yeah, I mean, we're just falling, you have some just like yeah, peak 50-50. Also, ES, this is why I hate ES. ES loves to create equal highs. Um, but yeah, this was just like peak 50-50 action. Realistically, I should have just been more patient. I should have just moved, first of all, moved the stop to even, after I got that pump, because any good pump is not going to retrace that deep most of the time. Sometimes it does, but that's an outlier event, and you can't trade off outliers. So what I should have done here is I should have moved my stop to even. So let's look at where my entry was. 913. It was pretty high. Well, that's why. So whatever. 913. It just ended up, it retraced much harder. So whatever. Could have moved my stop to even after being almost stopped out, not really expecting. I mean, the SMT low held, so that's why, we held it. But whatever. So got stopped out there. And then this was just strictly just crap, like caught in a very low time frame consolidation, anticipating it being a point of reversal. We moved into this 1 minute. Let me just mark that out. And this is all stuff that I'm seeing. It's hard for me to, like I said, hard for me to voice it in the moment as I'm trying to focus and execute the best possible. Like I'm trading on 15-second charts. It's hard for me to get a thought out and be completely locked in, focused at the same time. Hard for me to, call out everything. So that's why after the trading day, I will always typically do these recaps. Shorted another, boom, get screwed. Short, 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 screwed again. At this point, I was like, well, that's gross. And just thinking that maybe we accelerate all the way through, you know, because after seeing that type of candle, I always forget that it's this up here. After seeing that type of like come down, like, all right, maybe it is, maybe we're just going to give up the whole hourly. We didn't. We retraced. Again, market rarely moves in a straight line. This is me just being FOMO, not wanting to get, not wanting to miss the move that I saw coming down here, because I just took a loss that I probably shouldn't have taken. But whatever. So it just led to more loss over here with slightly more size. So that's what kind of dug us into our hole. And it was quick, like it was just a fat candle to the upside. Just is what it is. But yeah, happy to have gotten back on side. Really great execution here. From here to here, really happy with the way I executed. Here, right idea, just poor timing and too much size to weather drawdown. And also just wasn't mentally not fully committed to the downside here yet. Even though I was adding to it, just not fully committed. So is what it is, we'll take a day like today where we kind of thought through it. And I just had it. It's like Fridays are not great days. They're tough days. So look at that melt. Where are we? Yeah, wow. That was fast, wasn't it? It makes it a real pain in the ass for next week. I mean, I'm still aiming down, but I hate when like the real obvious draws get taken after I'm done trading. Whatever, man. Okay. That's going to be it for me today.
I'm just gonna get out of here. I have no real interest in trading, a bounce or a retracement here after we take these lows. I'm sure you'll get something to end the week relatively not on its low. If it does close absolutely on its low, we're probably super screwed for next week, but whatever. Key points to take away from today for myself and for anybody else that's listening. When this divergence got invalidated, get the hell out of the way of the upside. Don't even try, because that's mess. That's poor action, and you should not accept poor action. Just because you may still be able to trade it up does not mean you should. So that's on me. And again, the only reason I did was because I've seen days where we invalidate an SMT and create a new one for it to continue to work up to the upside. I just didn't want to miss out on a trade, but I should be able to let that go. That caused me mental anguish up here, toiled. That's why we're red. Small, but we're red when we could have been up, relatively large. I mean, consider, look, I made, had to make back another $250 or $260. With smaller leverage. We took a 3 contract short up here on the micros, which is decent enough. I mean, 20 points is like $200 or 20, 25 or something like that. But the real move, we got a little bit more locked in with some smaller size and held for a large, pretty large point gain. I mean, first ad was here. Yeah, about 50 points, and then the second ad being here. Another 35. It's a good day to work. It's honest. So yeah, I don't even know what I was talking about. Oh, right. Yeah, no trading longs. And then a little sus. No wick candle or whatever. Change in state. This was the obvious down move. Could have zoomed out ever so slightly on the 5 like we did. That's what gave us the confidence to know that we were headed downwards. Seeing the 5-minute, this is the time frame aligned pair. Okay, the 5-minute and the hourly go together. So you can look at how the 5-minute interacts with an hourly point of interest, like a fair value gap or whatever. So yeah, so this was kind of the dead giveaway. We had SMT. And if you take away all these drawings, sometimes the drawings get in the way. Super obvious. Look, SMT, fair value gap, rejection, same thing. So it was really the thought of how the weekly candle should be that really tripped me up. I think had this been a Tuesday or something, it's like, oh, business as usual. Let's trade it into the ground. But because it's a Friday and I had it in my mind that this weekly candle was going to print a hammer and not go 1,000 point, like, after this wick came down, but hey, all the power to them, flush it, get it over with. People need their money, rip the Band-Aid off and let the market rally to the moon like it always does. Okay, for real, that's it. I'm done now. Here, we'll lock out for the rest of the day because there's no point. All right, bit of a brick today. We can go over the stats real quick. Rough win percentage, trade win was 50-50. Just kind of ugly. These are skewed because of the first day's trade, like that one macro or whatever. What is trade direction? This is new. Oh, long trades versus short trades. I guess I do like to short more. But also, I mean, it's just where we're at. So on the week, 644, trading 4 out of the 5 days. And it could have been uglier today. Pretty happy with it, though. Nasty. Gross. Stupid. Yeah. So, yeah. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in. I hope anybody that watches these, like on the recorded aspect, I hope it's valuable. I hope it's insightful. I definitely feel like I provide a lot of insight into like the way I'm thinking. And I hope, somebody finds value in that. Just took last week's low. So if I was trading the bounce, I'd definitely look for it around there. All right. See you guys later. Thanks for checking it out. Hope you have a great weekend. See you.